I believe that we're on this wave in evolution that is waking up to the importance of relationship, how relationship is actually the fabric of reality, and that we can actually, deepen our awareness and our capacity and skillfulness in working with this interconnectedness and the relationships. And so I feel like we're part of a whole wave of an ecology of practice, like you name it, of supporting humanity in integrating that.
Trying to remember how I actually met you the first time. It's very likely in a SAS training with Circling Europe, I imagine.
Yeah, I think it was in Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
SAS, where I was a leader in training. And well, one thing that stands out for me from that experience actually is feeling very supported by you in bringing my own leadership and trying things out.
Mm.
Yeah, it feels very sweet when I go back to that now. It's something with combining contact, improv, and sort of the freedom of that with the circling practice.
Mm. Nice.
Mm. Well, I'm happy to have you here because well, we've spent quite a lot of time in various circling and surrender leadership spaces, and then I also have this like I know that you have been doing a lot of interesting stuff that I don't know a lot about, and I've seen you bringing a bit of it in when we've led together. But I just love to hear your story and how you got to where you are now, and then we can see where that goes afterwards.
Mm. Well, yeah, thanks for the invitation. It's nice to be here. And yeah, I'm just feeling a little bit of the awkwardness with being in this context of a podcast and going to be interviewed or talking about myself or my journey. There's some joy in that, to just, leading up to this podcast, just reminiscing a little bit about that journey. And yeah, that's been quite nice. But then also a little bit of like, yeah, is that interesting for others? So that's present here too. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, where shall I start?
Yeah, well, maybe at the start, like what led you into this field that I now call the relating arts? Like what was the entry point for you?
Yeah. Um, I was working in a leadership developmental firm, and I had me and my colleagues, we were very interested in, uh, you know, discovering a way of leading that is relational. And we didn't use those words at the time. We were talking about connection and yeah, connecting with, relational way of leading. We were just exploring all kinds of things like nonviolent communication and mindfulness and different ways of going into an innovation process, and it was quite exciting. And then my friend called me one day and she said, "Oh yeah, there's these guys from England and they're coming and they're going to do a workshop and I think you should be there." So I just went. I didn't know what it was about, and yeah, that's all how it went down. And just considering how my journey unfolded, my friend really likes teasing me a bit. Where it's like, "Oh yeah, you almost walked out your first circling." And it's actually true. My very first circle I was in, I just didn't know what we were going to do, and it was just a little context set and didn't really get it. And we were circling this woman, and she yeah, I remember she was just a bit defended, and nothing really would touch her. And we were sitting in this circle, and I just felt all of these things coming through me. And and I couldn't tell where it was coming from or what it was. And it brought me back to a memory of a time where I was struggling a lot in life, and I was having lots of anxiety and panic attacks, and the same thing was happening where I was just feeling a lot and just didn't know what it was or how to relate to it. And the circle got close, and I remember standing up like, yeah, I don't know, I don't like this, I don't want this. And of course John was leading, and John inquired a little bit more of like what's happening, and I was sharing what was going on. And then my friend who sat next to me, he said, huh, so the thing that you almost has you walk away is the exact thing that has me want to be here. And that just blew my mind. I was like, what, you like this? It had me, it shifted my paradigm, and it had me sit down with curiosity of like, okay, one can enjoy this, like let's try. And then we did the second circle, and in those times the circles we did were 50 minutes each circle was 50 minutes long. And the second circle was amazing. We were circling this woman, and it was like, I would say there was a lot of silence and slowness, and it felt like we were descending to a point where she was tapping into a feeling of loneliness that she had felt as a child after her parents divorced. And I could sense her all the way down, and then I was feeling it with her, and I was like, wow, you're feeling that thing that you felt in your childhood, but now you're feeling it not alone, like we're here and I'm feeling it with you. And how it felt to me was like, oh, I'm carrying it with you right now. You're not holding it by yourself, but we're holding it together. And then what happened was, it seemed like the circle just started to move as one being, and we slowly moved to the ground. And I remember her lying down, and everyone was like, all these bodies were lying around her. We weren't in a cuddle pod, but we were all touching some body part, so we were connected. And it was amazing, and I felt the beauty of that. I remember crying, and I was very like not showing anyone, but just tears, and feeling like, wow, if this is possible, that's amazing. um so yeah, that was the second experience I had. um it didn't, like, at that point it wasn't quite clear to me like, oh yeah, this is what I want to be doing. But then it did have me sign up for this 3-day event that was happening 3 weeks later. And it was Authentic World was coming to Amsterdam, Becca Kunov and Robert McNaughton and the whole crew. And yeah, there was a 3-day event, and I signed up for it. And I remember going to this venue in Amsterdam and setting foot in the room, and this thought came like, I shouldn't be here as a participant. And I got really grumpy. I remember just walking in feeling really grumpy. I shouldn't be here as a participant. And I didn't know what that meant, because here I was in this new practice, and there were, I don't know, 60 people there, and they were all involved in this practice. Some had already done it, practiced it for decades. And so I just didn't make sense, that thought. Now it does, but at the time I was just like, yeah. So yeah, that's how it all started. And a lot of people that were at that event are still, in the field doing the work. Some of them have become my close friends. Yeah, it was a very exciting time. And I think later that year, John called me and they said, oh, we're going to do a train the trainer. Do you want to be part of it? And so, yeah, I said yes. And then I joined SCS at the end of that year. And then the next year I was certified. And yeah, then it really kicked off. Yeah.
This is like 15 years ago.
Yeah, 14 years ago. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then I met my husband, and he was leading circling nights, or actually authentic relating nights in Amsterdam. And then when I got certified, I was like, can I join you in the evenings? And oh, by the way, I would like to do circling. So he said yes. And yeah, we started leading together. Then soon after, he was like, okay, I have done this now for several years, so I don't actually want to do this. So then I continued and started a community in Amsterdam for a couple of years, been leading that 3.5 years or so. And yeah, started assisting in SES, did my own, tried to like bring circling into business. So been very occupied with that in the beginning years. And yeah, just anywhere people wanted to do circling or workshop, I was eager to go in. Switched careers, left my job, moved to Amsterdam, sold my car, sold anything that I didn't need, and then changed, yeah, everything up. And then that became my life and my vocation. Yeah.
And what's it been like to make this change?
Um, well, it felt that like the right thing. And when I made that decision, the circumstances allowed me to make that decision. It just felt like aligned and right. And it's, I think, a year and a half later when I realized like how hard it actually is to make a living of doing trainings and workshops. And then I realized like, wow, that was quite courageous. If I'd known in hindsight what I know now, or then at the time, I don't know if I would have made the same decision, because it was quite, yeah, it was quite a big thing. Um, but yeah, when I made that decision, I was just so clear of my yes and the alignment that, I just trusted that it would work out, and it did work out. But it's been an intense time, also with the whole community forming. And the beginning years just feel very turbulent, and yeah, also very loving and deep experiences, and met people that have become my dearest friends. So it's been very, very rich, but uh, it also it's been a steep learning curve, I would say. Yeah.
Can you say more about that? Like what is this deep learning curve, or what has it been like for you?
Mm. Well, I think I love the practice, and being in the practice was what I wanted most. So on that area, and in that area, I feel it was just love and expansion and flow. But what has been more difficult, or steep learning curve, was um, yeah, there's something with this feels a bit complex in me. Let me see how I want to. I think, yeah, so what was very turbulent was the growing community, a lot of people coming in wanting to be active in the community, seeing how can we collaborate. It's not a lot of structures that can hold that collaboration. So that was like discovering a way forward in that felt like intense. But there's also something in holding there's something with discovering more of being human, and more of who you want to be, starting to embody more who you want to be, starting to embody presence more, but then also meeting your edges. And that has been tough sometimes. For example, the thing that comes up is like, yeah, this notion of I want to be able to meet every single moment, uh, and behold that, and or meet people, and then like feeling the love, but then not fully including myself in that, uh, in order to be a good circling leader or good circling trainer to serve people. I would many times cross my own boundaries or gave away too much of myself, which has been hurtful and painful at times. So that's, I think, the steep learning curve. And I don't think it was a fast learning curve. Like, it needed the time it took, but it's been painful at times. And so that's maybe why I refer to it as a steep learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine, or at least that's my experience, that there's been a learning curve and I'm still learning. And
Yeah.
I'm curious about how that looks for you. Like, what are you learning these days?
Mm. Yeah. Well, what I'm currently very inspired by and interested in is the field connection. So yeah, there's the connection to self, connection to other, everything that entails, like the relational dynamics, and so much, such a rich territory to explore. Then there's the we, us as a group, or and how we can unfold and together and be in the practice of presencing in a group setting. But what I'm really interested in at the moment is also the field connection. So yeah, the relational field, but what defines a relational field? Like, there is the whole of reality is always present in each moment in all of us in the group, and how is that, I don't know if that's the right question, but just becoming more conscious of those different fields and how to be in connection with different fields or different aspects of reality, and including that in my being, in my expressions, in my, how I'm showing up, or recognizing how it's showing up in the room or in the world or in someone else.
How does that look? It awakens my curiosity, and then I'm like, I'm sort of grasping for what's the concrete of it. Like, can you give an example?
Yeah, so this morning, for example, I was working with a client, um, and what it can look like is like, you can identify a field just by naming it, or just by referring to it, and then you can reference it with your body, that field, and then you can come into connection with that field, start relating with it, just like you would do one-on-one with someone. But of course, it's much more embodied, like the sensing. It's like, what are you perceiving when you come into connection with that field? Can come through sensations, through feelings, through images or thoughts, or so it's really attuning to the field, and allowing information to come through, trusting that process, and then later on making sense of it together, and making meaning from that. So that's what it can look like, very concrete. Sometimes when we're in a group practice, for example, and archetypes start to play out, it becomes, it can be named, or it can be quite clear. So you can also work with it in the group. It often already happens, but I'm not sure how conscious we are of it all the time.
Hmm. So if I try to make sense of it from my own experience, like something I've been messing around with recently is I think this is how I understand the world at some kind of intuitive level that like there's a oneness that's there somewhere. There's some kind of pregnant stillness we can speak about there. It's like responsiveness. And then there's a duality. That's a place where we can play like with polarity, the yin and the yang of things. And then there's an area of sort of the archetypical, different maps for um, yeah, for viewing the world, and that gives me different perspectives when I view the world through, I don't know, the Enneagram or Jung's archetypes or whatever. And then we start to sort of move into quite a vast complexity where it's more like individual interactions and sort of just the wild complexity of reality as it is. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to place this field connection
Mm.
somewhere in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, and the wild complexity of it, it's like, yeah, we can only perceive so much, right? So we can't, it's just too complex and too much information for one human being to hold. I think as a group we can hold more, and that's why I find surrender leadership practice so interesting, because yeah, because we're sharing our awareness and because there is connection, we can hold together, we can hold more of reality, and that uh, yeah, is fun to play with, or and also interesting to meet and deepen into. Um, and now I lost my track. What I was going to say. Yeah,
I was trying to place this field awareness in my own sort of conceptual map of different layers of being with.
yeah. And you said, oh, it becomes really complex, and you made this movement,
Hmm.
and I was like, yeah, for me that's the surrender, not just like, oh, I'm being overwhelmed, but it's like I'm just gonna be and see what comes, and like what touches me, or what can I become aware of, and what is moving me, and how is it wanting to move, and just surrender in that way of like playing with what's here, what's present,
Hmm.
because you can't work it all out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I hear trust in that, like trust and surrender, the sort of I don't know, I can't control the situation, or maybe I can, but that's not what I want to do. At least the results will be different if I try.
Yeah.
But there's like I hold a piece, but I don't exactly know what it's a piece to, and there's like a we that can add its pieces in together, and then sometimes something arises that none of us could actually have
Yeah.
planned or seen. So it's something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And there's also the you said, oh, you can't control. This is true, like I can't control, but what I can choose consciously is to like be, and to deeply listen, to be deeply sensing, like a willingness to participate and be in presence, and presencing what's happening. And so that, to me, it's not just a surrender of like, oh, I'm just going to allow everything, but it's like, yeah, my there's an active surrender in it, as where like, yeah, the choice I make, how to show up, which is in surrender and being and deeply listening and sensing and participating, and uh yeah.
Cool.
And
What just came up for me, it feels a bit sort of a cutting, there's a cutting energy in it, but it's like, why is this important?
mm,
It's like I have my own answers, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be doing these things. But I'm curious about yours,
yeah,
because I find that sometimes I've had the experience of like, you can get really fucking nerdy about presence and what happens in presence and sort of the finer nuances of it. And I found myself growing a little bit tired of it, and I'm more like, what? Yeah, why? Sort of what's the instrumental of it? Why? What is it useful for? Or yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I definitely, uh, you know, I can have that question, ask myself that question too. And because for me, it's play, it's fun. I just love it. I love, exploring reality in this way, finding truth, like meeting reality even more. So there's maybe a seeker in me, or and I find that fun. And so my my version of that question can be something along the lines of like, yeah, but you have to also do something. If you because it's fun, it's play, and then it's not serious enough, or it's something has to have more meaning. Although this has so much meaning to me on one level, but I really am grateful and feel very blessed that this is also my work. So uh, and I don't just offer or facilitate these spaces because I want to have fun. I also can see how it is touching people and how people are benefiting from it, in events, but also in my coaching or in my one-on-one work with people, where there is a way where, because I have this way of being in presence and acceptance of life and reality, it becomes possible for me to meet people in what they're experiencing in life, and it kind of opens up a whole realm of possibility of being able to integrate more of what is happening, and coming more into a sense of resourcefulness in their life, so that they can make changes, or it transforms their life. So the why for me is also in how it is supporting people in their lives. Um, and there's another, I really believe in this. You talked a little bit, we talked before we hit record, we talked a little bit about your vision for this project that you're involved in. So how that connects to what lives in me is like, I believe that we're on this wave in evolution that is waking up to the importance of relationship, how relationship is actually the fabric of reality, and that we can actually deepen our awareness and our capacity and skillfulness in working with this interconnectedness and the relationships. And so I feel like we're part of a whole wave of an ecology of practice, like you name it, of supporting humanity in integrating that. And so that feels exciting for me as well, to be part of that movement. I just, like Otto Scharmer with theory, yeah, you know him. So he
Mm.
talks about right now, like when systems are crumbling and things fall apart, what we need to tend to is the social soil. And I think our field, or yeah, that's where we can come in. That's just what we've been training ourselves in, and we've learned a lot, and this is where we can support this movement. So for me, there's a lot of meaning in doing this work, and yeah, being involved. It's personally, it's fun and an enjoy for me, and I think there's a larger meaning to it.
Mm. Yeah, I liked listening to that.
Mm.
And I like just the pictures I get with like sort of the fun, or I don't know, being engaged with life, playing life on one hand, and then the sort of, and it's deeply meaningful, and I can see lives being transformed, and sort of the people blossoming from doing these things,
Mm.
on the other. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely the awakening aspect, the waking up in, you know, and waking down as well, like coming into this, deepening into this life, and um, but also finding the courage and the strength and the will maybe to stand up or be active and participate in life in a way that matches with your vision. That's where I get really excited about. So when you said in the beginning you felt encouraged by me in your first SES to show up in your leadership, yeah, that I feel that that's really speaks to the core of me, of what I enjoy when I see someone's uniqueness coming through, and I just want to support that. Yeah.
So I'm interested in, like, you've been in the circling and surrendered leadership practice for quite some years. And my sense, at least, is also that you have your tendrils into the sort of wider ecology or the wider field of practice. Can you say something about how do these things go together for you? And yeah, I've been at workshops you've facilitated where you've brought in various movement practices, and I'm sure you've done a lot of other stuff. You do a lot of coaching. Like, how does these things go together?
Yeah. Well, what I like is to be involved in other communities, so and get a sense of how we're resonating or where with other practices, and to see how, what other communities emphasize. Or but I do come back to the circling and surrendered leadership community time and time again, or it just feels the most immersive or most expansive place to integrate all of that. Um, yeah, I really like that it's a cross paradigmatic practice, so that we can weave everything in. And I feel quite lucky again, but maybe that's true for everyone. But the teachers I've met and the schools I've been studying in, it always have felt quite like it deepened my understanding of uh, what the practice actually is or what it can be, but also um, it it not just to deepen the practice and understanding, but there's also vice versa. So oftentimes I felt like I'm learning something outside of the community, and then because of the nature of the practice, I get to like then integrate it and in my being and in my way of showing up within our paradigm, because of the nature of the practice that allowed that. So yeah, I can still feel that, whenever I go into an event or a training, or it's always like, yeah, I'm creating a space, but it's also a space for me myself to be in the practice and deepen again. um yeah.
And that does seem to be a characteristic feature of circling transformational connection, surrender leadership practice, is this kind of radical willingness of the leader to always be in practice and be open to being transformed by the practice.
Yeah.
It does seem different than not all other, but like many other workshop facilitation styles seem to be more, there's more of a separate sort of, yeah, the leader is leading and giving, but there's no expectation of the leader sort of developing through the leadership
Yeah.
in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful, the beauty and the strangeness of the practice. But yeah, totally. Yeah.
if you were to speak to someone who might be watching this, who are new to relating practice, like what would be a good way of entering, or maybe more like what would be a good mind space to enter from? Like, what can you expect entering this world, and um, what's a good way to start practicing?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking back of how I entered with no prior knowledge. I think my deepest concern was that I needed to talk English the whole weekend. um, yeah. Um, I would say like find someone who's trained, um, and start with an intro evening or an intro course online, or so you get a bit of a sense of what the practices are. You get to practice within, some of the practices, and get circled once or twice, and be part of a circle and circling someone else. I think those are really, yeah, lovely ways to start. Um, yeah, that's where I would go.
And
Yeah.
well, I don't actually know if I would be able to answer this myself, but I'm like, how do you prepare yourself to step into this world? Because in some ways it does feel like there is like we talk about the hero's journey, right? You step over the threshold from the known to the unknown. And going into relating practice does seem to inherently have that move.
Yeah.
And the first thing that happens on the hero's journey is that you get smashed a bit by the world. Like there will be trials and tribulations, and you will meet a lot of
Mm.
stuff that you maybe didn't want to meet, or thought you didn't want to meet, or
Mm.
things that
Yeah.
are unexpected.
Yeah. I like that you bring in that perspective, and I want to hold that as, yeah, that as a possibility. And I want to put next to it that I also see that this way of being together is also very natural to a lot of people. I hear often when people come for the first time that they go after, it's like, oh, this feels normal. Finally, I get to be just how yeah. So there's also something natural for a lot of people, and a relief. And then, of course, because, yeah, we are being honest and truthful. So there is a way where we don't shy away from difficulties, or things that are more uncommon to look at. And but I feel we do hold that with a lot of space and love and acceptance. And so that can be challenging, but at the same time there's also a lot of holding, that makes it maybe easier. But yeah, uh, and then especially when we're in a group practice where we work with the relational dynamics and the material that comes up between us, that can be very intense. I think, when, yeah, especially around boundaries and power, and taking up space, and not taking up space. And I think that's also why I love the practice, because it's so revealing, and it shows you, it's such a mirror to look in. But yeah, looking in the mirror, it's not always fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that perspective being there. It's like the picture I got is like how I think I had that. It makes sense to say that that happened to me. Like having gone through life, sort of being quite tense in, or quite contracted in my being somehow. And then coming into a space where it's like, oh, you don't have to do that here. You don't have to be contracted in that way. And how that can feel, for some, I imagine, very relaxing, and
Mm.
for some very disturbing, because it's like, but I've been doing this my whole life. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, this is how I survive life. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, but you don't have to. And then, at least for me, it was more of a slow opening up from there, like, oh, okay, can
Yeah.
chill a little bit with the contracting.
Yeah. Well, I had my whole journey with that as well. It's funny, sometimes I tell people this and they're a bit surprised because now, yeah, I'm leading the practice, but back in the days, especially in the surrendered leadership, I would be super silent. I would hardly speak. And then, the hours of sitting in circle frustrated because there was something I wanted to say and then I didn't, and then someone else said it and I was like, that was mine to say, and feeling frustrated with myself, and then kind of, disappearing in my own inner process around that whole thing. It just, yeah, it was really, really tough. Like, you having to meet where I shy away, or where I'm, yeah, not being in my power, or not being, just shrinking to fit in, not standing out. So, yeah, that was a painful trajectory. It's a bit similar, maybe different to yours, but it was, yeah, really coming to terms with myself. And I wonder how you worked with that. But for me, what was the way through was just allowing myself to feel the fear, noticing all the ways I was shrinking and when I was shrinking, and then not beating myself up, but actually being compassionate with myself, like, okay, it's okay, you know. And then through that, I actually started to feel more space to show up. um, but it was tough to not try to push myself into showing up. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I recognize that a lot. Like, I have this, the way I prefer to describe, one of the things that I really care about in the surrender leadership practice these days is like, you get to see your own karma in action. Like, you get
Mm.
to see it live, because we slow down in a way where it's like, it becomes very obvious when you've been sitting there for an hour with a burning desire to move to the other side of the circle and sit next to someone, and you're not doing it. And it's like, okay, no one is stopping me from doing this. And it's a space that invites for this. I actually came here exactly to do these kinds of things that are
Yeah.
difficult for me to do, and I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that? Like, what is happening? And
Yeah.
for me, that is a very classic surrender leadership experience. This, like, oh, apparently this is really scary for me.
Mm.
And then it's like, how can I, yeah, I should say, how can I be compassionate, gentle with myself in that, and also sort of go through it in some way where, for me, it's been like finding the ways of then bringing myself.
Mhm.
And for a while, that was like, okay, can I speak this? Can I speak the contraction then? I was
Mm.
like, this is what's happening. And then at some point, it became like, now speaking the contraction seems to be getting in the way of actually just moving and
Yeah.
doing the thing. Uh,
Yeah.
Seeing these, just, yeah, these layers of fear that.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that way, so then the circle and the space becomes like a microcosm of what's happening in life.
Mm,
And so we get to really zoom in on those patterns and those ways of being and how we're being with us. And then there's this group of people that can meet you in that, can be with you, explore it, like what is actually happening, not by judging or trying to fix you, or but just meeting what's here. so you get to deepen your understanding of what's going on, but also deepen the contact with what is actually real in your experience.
Mm.
And I think through that there's an integration possible that when you come back into life, that more becomes possible. There's just more possibility
Mm.
all of a sudden because you've worked through that in the group or in the circle.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely seems true for me as well, that for myself and for many others that I've worked with, that yeah, something becomes available in new ways when you've tried it a few times or you've seen it with more clarity.
Yeah.
Like, okay, maybe it isn't that dangerous anymore to just say what I'm actually feeling to someone when we're in a conversation, or just allow my listening a little bit more and sort of actually notice that something is going on with the person who's speaking to me, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then there's another side of it that I also see that makes the circling practice a bit tricky. I find that people who come into the practice and experience these openings, and it's like, oh, it's so available and easy in some way to just be honest and open with each other here. And then
Mm.
they go out into life and they get smashed by life a bit, um,
Yeah.
because we don't actually, or this is my take on it, we don't actually notice how much help we get in the contained practice spaces, because everybody is kind of there circling themselves, welcoming, revealing, practicing deep listening, practicing showing up. And that does like such a difference compared to sitting in a room with a group of friends.
True. Yeah. And yeah, so that partly there is a lot of skillfulness, but and I still, I experience that too. Like even the other day, I vulnerably shared something in a WhatsApp thread that's here in the area where I lived, and the responses I got were like completely missing what I said, and if I could feel the pain of like, oh, it's really feeling missed, feeling judged. So it was quite painful, and I was like, yeah, that is the how skilled people or some people are with connecting or communication, and but then still there is a choice in me of like, how do I want to show up? But yeah, that's where I find it interesting, where me coming back into life and the choice I have of how do I want to show up, um with my children, but also with the people I'm meeting, parents of my friends, my daughter's friends, or um, I'm aware that that there is a certain way or a certain depth and a certain realness that I hold as possible in connection, and I gear towards that. Um, and I want to, but I am also aware that not everyone is open for that. So I'm always attuning and sensing like how is it impacting, and just kind of like showing up in the connection. Like I'm available for more, and it doesn't have to be like, I don't have to always go very deep. And I mean, I had that time in the beginning years as well, where it's like I just wanted to go deep all the time. But right now it's like, the depth is in me, like the connection, the depth I am connected to in me, and I can offer that, but I don't have to be met in the same way. Or it's lovely when it happens, and I want that too, but I don't need it from people all the time. How is that for you?
Mm, I definitely recognize the shift from, well, the early years of practice and almost breaking up with friends because they didn't want to circle with me, and uh, stuff like that, to being a bit more chill, also feeling more integrated. I think that there's something that's a bit more just part of my being, um, and yeah, that I don't have as much of a need or like a craving for something in particular. I also enjoy being in quite mundane things with people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I have this, yeah, it came up with your not having to show up in a particular way, or like not forcing myself on people. I have two sides on that. Where on one is like I wouldn't want to do that. I don't want to overstep boundaries. And then I also have this question of like how much of that is actually my own avoidance. That it's like I kind of hide behind, maybe these people just don't want all the love that I'm experiencing, or sort of the wider connection to presence and the world. And I find that people do tend to want that more or less always, and there is a risk of sort of getting in the way of that, out of like, oh, I shouldn't force this on people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I hold that, like the giving, that feels like my choice. It's like how I want to show up, and what the other person does with that's up to them. Yeah. So that feels, I think that feels quite aligned.